Hello and welcome to the first episode of Based. I'm Nathan.
I'm Ben.
I'm Mika.
And I'm Hayden.
So today we'll be taking the political compass test, and you'll be following Ben's screen while the rest of us will be taking the political compass test.
Look at that. Oh, let's get right into it. Okay, guys. So, if you guys want to follow along, you can go on, log on to politicalcompass.com and find the test, and take it along with you, debate with us, and we're gonna go through. So you answer the political compass by disagree, agree, strongly disagree, or strongly agree, and it's gonna go through several areas of political theory. So we're gonna find out where we place on that compass.
Yep. Okay, so we're not really going to go over the directions. I think this is a pretty popular quiz, so most of you are probably familiar with it. So I guess we'll hop into the first question. If economic globalization is inevitable, it should primarily serve humanity rather than the interests of transnational corporations.
It's going to be a strongly agree for me. I don't think that there's any reality in which I think economic globalization is inevitable. I think it is happening right now. And I don't see any reality in which it should serve anything rather than the individual, which is, why transnational corporations are built in the first place. But then they've grown into an entity which serves only for profit, which I think is one of the major problems with our economy today.
In my opinion, I would prefer to stay away from globalization. I would consider nationalism the primary focus of our country. But if it was to be inevitable, I would just put regular agree, because the interests of national corporations or transnational corporations are not necessarily mutually exclusive with people, but I think people should be the primary interest of, globalization in general.
If each government was able to control these transnational corporations, Nathan, and the extent of that control, how does that change your answer?
If government controls these corporations?
If the government can, control these corporations and how they operate.
Well, I think then it would be a strongly agree, in which, if it primarily suits the interest of a nation, I would think a nation would be the best interest to follow as your own.
Gotcha. All right.
For me, I put disagree, and the reasoning behind that is I don't think that an economy built to serve humanity is an efficient economy. So I think that allowing the economy to do its own work is the best way of serving humanity, not necessarily a deliberate way, but the overall outcome in the end is best when it's not built with a enforced mission statement.
Yeah, I'm going to side with Nathan here. I'm going to say agree, because I don't think the government should play a large role in regulating the economy, kind of what Nico was saying, but I do think it should be regulated in a sense that would serve humanity.
Interesting. So we have a couple people with the same answer, but for a lot of different reasons. Because I think the government should strongly regulate the economy. So, and whereas you guys don't think, but it comes out to different answers. All right, that's dope. The next one. I'd always support my country, whether it was right or wrong.
I'm going to go strongly disagree.
Same here. I think it's just complete buffoonery to convince yourself of your country being white when you know they're wrong. Like,
all right. I mean,
literal foolishness.
Because the whole reason in which you should support your country and want to live it in the first place is because you think it is primarily right. So if your moral stance is disagreeing with that, then I don't think that I don't think it is your country at that point. But yeah, strongly disagree for me.
For me, I would say agree or strongly agree, because of the fact that it's your own nation. Your interest should align with your own nation. No matter what the cost is, your nation comes first. It's not a matter of debate to me. It's my values belief that our nation is what we should follow, not some foreign government because we think it aligns with our ideals better.
But if we have, say, a government that you don't think is supporting your ideals, would you still agree with it?
Depending on the action that it takes. That's why I said I would say either agree or strongly agree. It really just depends on the fact how the government's changing. We have a system set up that I would, I would like to change, but I'm not going to go about it and say I disagree with my country on that. I would think putting country first is a primarily focus of people within, your nation and your country is putting your country first.
But you said it depends. So that
Yeah,
means that you would.
That's why I said agree or strongly agree, because I think sometimes in a small case, you may have to take an ideological stance against it, but that's where ideology
So you're saying
ideology comes.
disagree because you don't always support your country, whether it was right
No,
or wrong. If it took a
I would
wrong
say-
stance, you would not side with your country.
I said not.
I just want to
necessarily.
clarify your side here because it sounds to me like you're slightly disagree.
I would say agree because it's a small case, and the fact is, depending on what that case is, specifically for our country, we have systems in place to prevent something that would go completely against my morals and my standpoint, because this is the country I was born in, the country I support. So I think in this country specifically, I would just put agree, because we have certain cases set up to prevent certain things that would go against my moral and my values.
So you're saying that, obviously, I mean, we live in America. You think that America will never go against something which you disagree with because you think that America inherently agrees with your values. Okay.
Yes, in a way that like the government set up to prevent some radical change to one direction or another, that it completely goes against my moral standpoint. For example, not all laws in place support my political or social beliefs, but it's available for change, and I'm not disagreeing with my country on what it stands for.
So you agree, you want stability, you value stability over change in a positive direction, correct?
Correct. Yeah, that's correct.
All right. Nico, you want to do the next one?
Yeah. No one chooses his or her country's birth, so it's foolish to be proud of it. For me, I'm just going to say, I mean, I would somewhat disagree with that, I suppose, because you can still be proud of your home country in many ways, and I think many people are, but I think that's mostly to do with culture of the country and not necessarily the state of that country. So I would put disagree, just because I do think people have cultural ties, and that's a very real thing. I just think it, in the end, is something people are proud of and generally should be. It's not like totally foolish or anything.
I would say strongly agree, because it is foolish to be proud of your country of birth, because what if that country was a shithole? I mean,
Well, but
are we talking like what if you were born in Syria, Iraq, countries in the Middle East, and Africa?
Whoa. But I'm going to stop you right there. And I'm going to tell you why
aren't making great decisions on a governmental level. So I don't think you should be proud of that. I'm proud of my country of birth. I'm proud that I live in the United States because I like democracy, the republic system that we have, the freedoms that we have from the Bill of Rights.
I'm gonna have to call you out on this one though, because so I'm gonna go strongly disagree, because I do believe that if you were born in X country, then inherently that X country is going to influence your values and your situation in general. So therefore, I think that I disagree with them calling it foolish to be proud of it, because I think if you are proud of your own values and your own moral standpoint and your own political views, then you inherently have to be proud of the country that created it. Or you don't inherently have to be proud of it, but it's not foolish to be proud of it. And therefore, if you live in somewhere like Syria, all of these places that are war-torn, the reason why they're war-torn is people are fighting for values that were created by being born in that country.
I think
that
it's
noise?
like, you can be proud of it, but you don't have to. And I think Ben's thinking that this question is saying he's saying that you have to be proud of it, or at least that's, or no, I'm not.
You don't have to be proud of it.
I don't think you should be proud of your country because you were born in that country. I think you should be proud of your country if you support what they're doing on a governmental level.
I disagree, Ben, because you're failing to acknowledge the fact that a country doesn't necessarily mean its governmental structure. A country is the ethnicity, it's the culture that surrounds that country.
But I would say it's more of a nation. A nation represents that country.
Yeah.
I feel like
correct, but
it's not foolish to be proud of your culture, but it is foolish to be proud of what your country is doing just because you were born there.
But many people are proud of being Americans.
Like, you have no control over where you're born, so why would you why would you be prideful of that?
So it's
I mean,
because of the
people
fact
call.
that it's what your values believe in. It's what you're surrounded. It's your culture. For example, when someone comes from Mexico and they live in America, the reason we have terms like Mexican American is because of they're proud of their country of birth, the culture that surrounds it. And in my opinion, Mexico is not necessarily the best run. That's why they're coming to America. There's certain people coming to America to escape what's in Mexico. But it doesn't mean they can't be proud of the culture that surrounds that country. They can't be proud of their family that's in that country. Because I believe,
Right.
a country similar to a
But
family.
that culture, Ben,
I
what
agree
you're
with you. No, people
Ben.
can be.
But what you're failing to recognize is that culture is inherent to the land. You can't say that Mexican culture is a globalized culture, and you can't say inherently that American culture. You can make the argument but that's only because we created it and then exported it, which again defaults into the fact that we built it on this land. Mexican culture is inherently tied to the land of Mexico. By saying you can't view one without the other, they're intrinsically tied together. And so one of the rare moments I'm going to agree with Nathan here. It's a strongly disagree for me.
But I think we agree. I think it's just the language. I think that I agree with you that you can be proud of your culture and your heritage and your language, all that kind of stuff. But you shouldn't be proud of the government.
But that's not what it's saying. It's not necessarily saying
Gonna say
government.
It's
Let's
saying
move on.
country. Country includes everything in my view.
And
Well,
I
that's
don't
what
think
I'm
the
saying,
government is a part
And
of
I
the country.
think what Hayden is saying is that you can't just isolate one of those variables because
Okay, let's move on to the
government
next
influences the
question.
culture as the culture
Like,
influences
hold
the
on.
government.
Let me get a final point in. I love the country, and I love the place in which I was born, America, and thus, because I disagree with a lot of the things that America, the government, does, I want to inherently change that government to reflect my values because I value the land so much.
And the people.
Okay,
Right.
let's move on to the next one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ben, go ahead.
Okay. Our race has many superior qualities compared with other races. I think this is an obvious strong disagree for all of us.
It's going to be a
Then I think you should head to this one.
I would agree. It's strongly disagree. But if you were to replace the word race with culture, I think it would be the completely opposite with me.
Well, I think that's an interesting question because you can argue that Western culture is considered superior because it has dominated the world, and so it best fits the world it made. But that doesn't mean it's inherently superior. That means it inherently fits the system that we live in as humans. And I think those are two very different things.
Superior has an interesting connotation here. It's superior in terms of the way that it is manifested, in terms of superior over like oppressing other nations, or are you talking superior as in intrinsically like having a value attached to it? And I think it's in this context saying value attached to it. So I mean, strongly disagree. Obviously, actually, I strongly disagree with both of those.
Well, it's also
Whether
because it's also because we're talking about race. So I think everyone would have to put strongly disagree just because the fact that we're talking about race. I just had another point of view in mind talking about culture.
Yeah,
All right,
I
gotcha.
was just sort of building off of what you had said.
All right, Nathan, go ahead on the
Agreement.
next one.
So this one is the enemy of my enemy is my friend. In my opinion, that's completely false. And I could bring up historical examples. For example, World War II, just because we were allied with the Soviets for a temporary point to defeat the Nazis and Italy and Japan, it was due to the fact that we had a common enemy, but that doesn't make them our friend because eventually, minutes after we were at war, we were struggling to get Nazi scientists. Well, there's more information to that, but it doesn't matter. We were ideologically different and we just had a common enemy, but that doesn't make them our friends. So I'd say strongly disagree in my point of view.
Yeah, I'd say disagree. I think there are times when the enemy of your enemy can be your friend, but that doesn't make it inherently your friend. So I just say disagree. I'm just a bit milder on that than you, I think, Nathan.
I disagree as well because I'm inherently value driven, and I think that we sometimes get into this world a lot of disagreements that are like, oh well, they did that, therefore what I'm doing is okay because they're doing something worse, which is kind of a ridiculous way to look at it. I think that you should be tied to what you want your country and government to be, not what it is currently or what it has been. I think so it's going to be a disagree for me because if the enemy of my enemy is doing something that would make them my enemy if the enemy of my enemy is doing something that would make me disagree with them, But for right now, I'm allied with them for political stance. I don't think that that's a inherently friendly or allied disposition to hold or position to hold.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with all of you. I'm going to say strongly disagree because we can form alliance systems but not actually be ideological allies
Okay.
with those people. So
I'll take the next one. Military action that defies international law is sometimes justified. I'm gonna say agree, but very slightly, because I do think there are cases when there is a lesser of two evils, and we don't live in a perfect world, and so it's not necessarily the best course of action, but on the whole, it can be the right course of action. And so I do think there are some circumstances, not very many, but there are some, and so I'm gonna have to default to agree, where international law being violated for military purposes can be justified.
I'm going to say disagree. I think I agree with you, Nico. There may be a few circumstances where we could violate international law and it would be okay. But for the most part, I think we should set the precedent that it's not okay to violate international law. I mean, you got a lot of war-torn countries in the developing world that are constantly violating international law. And that's causing a major problem. I mean, you see attacks on hospitals, education facilities, and we just should not be setting the precedent that that is okay and countries can get away with that. So I'm going to say disagree. I've read a lot of pieces of international law in concern to the military, and there's nothing ridiculous in there. It's not like, you know,
I can see
Humble
where
brag.
you're coming from. I just think we're like slightly defaulting to one or the other. Like we're just sort of tipping off one edge or the other.
In my opinion, international law is not viable in any case because of the fact that we're a nation. I don't think we should follow international law. They don't control, they're not our government. We don't follow what the UN or whatever international body says is law. So I think it's completely we should throw out international law in general. And I would say military action that defies international law, strongly agree, because the international law has no effect on our country and our military. We should do what we think is best in certain scenarios.
Well, as America, we have done that.
I'm strongly disagree on this one. I think that I don't think there is any situation in which you can defy international law and be on any type of moral high ground against people who are similarly defining international law. So some people are like, oh, well, we should be able to, get away with some things because we're killing the lesser of two evils. But I think that by making yourself an evil, eventually you lead yourself down a slippery slope. For example, what America has done in the Middle East currently. That all began because we're like, oh, we're the lesser of two evils. We need to go in there. We need to blah, blah, blah. Well, no, now you're just creating new terrorist organizations fueled by hate. And I think once you start the hypocritical stance or action of defying international law for the sake of stopping the defying of it, well, people forget, what is international law based off of? Not anything reprehensible in terms of legal action, like Nathan said, but it's actually the consensus of countries. And if you want to respect that consensus and be held on a ground which is both ethically defensible and also politically defensible, if you want the help of other countries and to be involved or important in that consensus that creates international law, you can't be breaking it. And so I'm strongly disagree.
Ben, go ahead.
I can agree with you that it's a slippery slope, but all right, let's just move on now.
I think it's my next one. So
okay.
There is now a worrying fusion of information and entertainment. Sit on that one for a bit if you need to.
I can talk.
I'm gonna say yes. Back, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago, there were only 3 news publications. Yes, I would say there is a worrying fusion of information and entertainment. Like the industry has grown a lot. So yeah, I'm gonna.
I would completely agree with Ben, but I would say strongly agree just because of the fact that entertainment and information. The difference between me and Ben is I think it's fine having more news sources, but when people that are in professional sports or in Hollywood, for example, and they're giving political opinions, they don't realize the effect it has on the people that watch them. Adults are a little bit more, defined in their political views, so they don't really get affected by that. But the kids that watch them, their values are changing because of the people that they look up to, and they're stating their political opinions, which could be completely opposite to what the family wants, to you know, what the family thinks is right. And I think it's completely wrong for the entertainment industry to supply political views or moral views to children.
All right, so I'm gonna go with I disagree with this one. I think that over the course of human history, you kind of run into a situation where it's only the elites who are involved politically because peasants are oppressed both economically and politically and don't have the opportunity to access this information. And so I think in the modern age where you have this new opportunity of information being spread around, I think that it's more important to have that information spread around to as many people as possible, even if it's clouded by a level of bias and entertainment, in order so that you get people consuming more of that information. And so I would rather have someone who is influenced by a bias than someone who is not influenced or interested in politics at all.
But
At
I
least
would
participating in government.
I think the difference between what you and I are thinking is that, you talk about the elites, which I agree, the elites have control of the information, but people like LeBron James or people that are in Hollywood are no different than the elites that were in previous years. They're people that make a lot of money that are influencing political views. And I think we think about that differently. And I think there should be more access to information, but it should be, news-based information and not necessarily coming from entertainment. I think that's where we differ.
For me, I put strongly agree, but I think it's because the information centers, we're talking 24/7 cable news, they're forced to turn their because they're supposed to be information sources, but to make money, they have to become entertaining. And I think that's a very big problem because now the chief goal of a Fox News, of a CBS or whatever, is not to provide people with the right information. It's to get good ratings and make money because they're a business and they have to. And I think that is a very worrying issue. So I don't think it's necessarily entertainment trying to take the place of information, but information having to become entertainment as well is the problem, in my personal opinion.
I'll give you
ratings in the media have plummeted recently.
Yeah.
So it is a big problem because a lot of people that want to get involved in politics and learn the right information don't know where to go because they think anything is credible and there's a major bias. I mean, back when there were only like 3 stations on TV that were reporting the same thing, that information was taken as objective truth, and nobody really had to think about it or process it that much, which could be a bad thing. I mean, because then, everybody can't think for themselves, but
I would think it's a little bit of both. That it's the worrying fusion of entertainment, like where news sources are trying to become entertaining to get views, along with entertainment trying to budge into becoming information. And I disagree with Ben on the statement that people didn't think for themselves back then when there was few channels. I think it was more thinking for yourself because news channels would just give you the facts, and then it was your responsibility to come with your opinion on that. Now they're giving their opinions on what they watch or what the news is. Now the stations you watch, for example, Fox, will give their right-wing opinion on what happens, and stations like CNN and MSNBC will give their left-wing opinions on what happened. And you're not actually just getting the facts; you're getting a bias in today's age.
So let me give you my
a blurry line between.
Hold on, Ben. I got to get my counterpoint in because I was trying to say this earlier. Here's what worries me about this question. It says there is now a worrying fusion of information. There is now a worrying. I don't think that it is necessarily a problem that is occurring recently. I mean, it's more accessible now. It's more accessible, but I don't think that entertainment and information was ever really that far apart. Going back into, all the way back and back and back throughout human history, I think information has always been tainted with a bit of entertainment in order to make it consumption. And I agree with Nico on the point that the economy cannot be involved, but of course my economic stance I think would make that so that's not necessarily as big as an issue. But in a vacuum, information and entertainment being intertwined, I don't see as big of a problem and I don't see it as big of a problem as it occurs recently and moves forward. So
Okay, I think we sort of worn this one out.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Next page.
Next one.
All right. People are ultimately divided more by class than by nationality.
That's
go
gonna
first.
be okay. Go ahead.
I'm
Go
gonna.
ahead.
Oh.
So, in my opinion, I think it's a little bit of both because I don't think they're mutually exclusive. For example, I think it's also just psychology. It's like people, we're always going to differ in class and nationality, and people will always have a fear of something different than their own. So, I can't really come up with a strong view on this, but I would think generally in today's modern age compared to previously when there is more nations in general, I think nationality is more of a divide than class because I think people have just accepted class differences, especially in capitalistic societies, Western society, because class will always be a difference in, capitalist systems. So I think in today's age, nationality is a bigger difference rather than, medieval ages where, there was kings and lords. I think that's when class was a bigger factor than nationality.
I disagree with you.
Oh,
You want to go ahead, Nico? Go ahead.
okay, so I put agree. And the reason I put that is because I think that's where we're trending to. Right now, I don't think we're not really leaning towards one thing or another. But like if we look back in history, even a couple hundred years ago, say during like Napoleonic Wars, when the men, or sorry, actually we'll go before that because Napoleonic Wars is a bit of a shift. But before then, when men marched out to war, they went underneath the flag of their province or their like hometown basically. So that was, although there was a national element, there was very much so more pride within their own city and within their own people that they tangibly knew. But I think now we trended more towards nationality, and I think we are on a path to see more, like we talk about a European citizen, that's not nationality based, that's European culturally based. And I feel like the end result of this will be more by class because there will be fewer nations that people align with. I don't think that's anything coming soon. I just think that's the overall trend that's going to take a very long time to occur. And that's why I put agree.
Yeah, I strongly agree. Pretty much, I think for the same reason as you're saying, is as the age of information increases the interactivity between nations and stuff like that, I don't think that we're really that much divided based on our cultural differences because everyone experiences those cultural differences. Versus we are more divided on class because there's a very large divide, an increasing divide actually with the, you've all heard of the 1% controls 90% of the wealth. We're increasingly divided by class because we are less divided by nationality, if that makes sense in a way. I think that people can experience all types of culture, whether that be travel, the internet, whatever. But I don't think that poor people are having the same experience as rich people or the middle class is experiencing either of both. So I think that we're more divided. I strongly agree that we're more divided by class.
I would say, yeah, I'd say agree, not strongly agree. I think different countries, different cultures experience different things in life. They have different customs, different religious practices, and all that. But definitely with the age of information and globalization, I think we're definitely moving towards a trend where we'd be more divided by class.
Not based.
Right.
Okay.
Not based at all.
Not based. Okay. Controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment.
This is a tough one.
I mean, I can go first.
Yeah, go ahead.
So,
yeah, go ahead.
In my opinion, I think unemployment would be better to control just because it's more important to focus on the people rather than the economy. In my opinion, as a government, you have to treat it like a family where it's like you care about the people that you're running, and it's more important that these people are employed than focusing necessarily on economic downturn and upturn. But in my opinion, also inflation, there's a good amount of healthy inflation where, you go up or down. And you can't let it get too out of control. But I think focusing, for example, the United States has a strong enough economy where the inflation rate is not going to go out of hand. Focusing on unemployment is more important. You got to focus more on the workers, on the people that are actually in the country than, actually making sure you're the top country in the economy. I think It's more important that everybody's employed rather than you being
I'm
the
so
number one
proud
person.
of you, Nathan. Base.
It's kind of based.
Base.
Based on yeah.
Okay, I can talk on this one. I've been giving it some
Yeah.
thought. I think what this really boils down to is whether you value people having a job in the first place or having the ability to move up the social ladder. I mean, Hayden, your views don't necessarily include a social ladder, perhaps, but I think that controlling inflation is more important because, at least in our American system, and why I say that is because when you inflate the dollar value over time, like in 10 years, it's around like 2 to 3%. That's a 20 to 30% decrease in the value of a dollar you saved 10 years ago. And I think that really hurts the lower class and the middle class the most, who are trying to save, because they don't know how to properly manage their money and invest it, so they don't get hit by the inflation that is going to lower the value of their money. And so here I'm basically placing a higher value on allowing people to move up economically, like up into the middle and upper classes, rather than just making sure they have a job, because we do have welfare and there are obviously some issues with that, at least in my opinion. And I think it's more important to allow them, to just give them that opportunity. I really think opportunity is the key, at least in our current system, and one that I would favor.
I would agree with you there. I think it's just a different method of how we would want to go about that. I think, providing employment opportunities for people on welfare, and in order to get them off of it, would be a better scenario than making sure inflation is good enough, for big corporations so their value doesn't go down. People affected by the stock market is everybody, but big corporations.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that inflation hurts people the most who don't invest, because when you invest, if you invest in something that doesn't go out of business, if it stays at its current value, inflation will adjust that value, because it's going to go up 2 to 3% per year, because there's more money and prices are going up. But if the people who can't invest, which is definitely the lower class, and to a certain extent the middle class, when they don't know how to invest, their money is just, anything they save, its value is just going to dwindle away each and every year. And I think that's the bigger problem, because unless you have major unemployment, I think controlling inflation is more important. On a very slight edge, though.
Yeah, I think it definitely depends on the country that we're talking about. In terms of the United States, I think we should focus a lot more on unemployment, because inflation is not really an issue. We've done a good job controlling it in the past. But for countries like Venezuela, Zimbabwe, where they have rampant inflation, what you're kind of talking about, Nico, is it's hard to work yourself up, and it just.
I'm not talking about rapid inflation. I'm talking about successive inflation that just compounds.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not that well rounded on economics, but I would say it depends. So I'm kind of taking a middle ground stance here.
I'm very.
So I'll probably.
I'm barely leaning over.
I'll probably shock the world here, and I'm gonna agree with Nico. I think that controlling inflation is actually more important, and I'll give my reasons why.
Not based.
Okay, but listen.
We'll see.
And it has to do with a lot of what Nathan's argument is, and being a counterpoint to that. If you asked me 100 years ago, I would most say strongly agree it's unemployment. But AI and technology is trending towards a world in which employment itself is sort of a unnecessary, or even, not really a thing that's going to be that important in the world continuing. And so I think controlling inflation and controlling the stability of the economy, but not for the elite, where Nico was saying not for the elite, but then with my other economic policy in terms of a high tax rate and then spreading benefits around, I think, like, for example, with Andrew Yang's freedom dividend. Yeah, UBI, freedom dividend. So the biggest problem there is inflation. If you give everyone $1,000 a month, how bad is the inflation going to be? And then how long will you actually have to ramp it up from $1,000 to make it the same value? And I think that we are trending towards universal basic income, because America itself is not going to employ that many people, because we're a late stage economy with I mean, late stage capitalism anyway, Marx based. Late stage capitalism is based as hell. Or I mean, the idea of it is based as hell. It's not. It sucks. But anyway, I think with Nathan's argument is, we need to employ everyone within the nation in order to keep them the stability of that, which I disagree with. I think that we don't need to employ everyone in the nation. We need to ensure that the economy is stabilized moving forward because of the new methods of economy.
Well, but can I say something real quick, because he was going against my point real quick? So I would agree with you, Hayden, but in my opinion, in the economy, I would try to control also the new forms of technology that are replacing workers, because it's not just, immigration. It's not just outsourcing. It's also, like you said, AI and, machinery that is replacing workers. So in my opinion, I think there should be stronger regulation against that to protect the workers in the first place before you have to start thinking about,
I agree. And I think that that's how you would make a lot of tax dollars by it's effectively taxing the rich, since they're the people who own the AI. You'd make a lot of money for redistribution economic policy. But all right, let's continue. I'm going to put disagree on.
Can I add one thing before we go?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I would, in some levels, disagree with the statement that we will move away from people having jobs, because, if there's a need for jobs and we have a free market, the market will most likely, in some ways, adapt to it. Not necessarily immediately. It depends how fast AI rolls out. But I think what is most likely to happen, or at least what I see happening, is there will be maybe 30 years of where AI is really causing major job issues, but the market will evolve itself or adapt itself to allow for people to have new jobs. Like, we look back in the Industrial Revolution, people thought that their jobs were going to be taken and there would be no jobs. They didn't know what the jobs would be. But I mean, leisure, there's going to be more leisure time, and that means there's going to be more jobs to provide or to entertain. So I just think the market adapts itself.
I'll give you that point, and that's something I don't think either of us can really speculate on with certainty. But anyway, moving on.
Yeah.
Because corporations cannot be trusted to voluntarily protect the environment, they require regulation. Strongly agree from me. I don't even think that's the environment is actually one of the biggest issues that we're facing today. And I think if you don't face regulation, and not even regulation, prohibition into that kind of stuff, not regulation in terms of, you must pay X amount of money to use. No, just regulating that you cannot specifically use or have practices that are harmful to the environment.
So I would agree, but I would just say regular agree, because I think you also have to have a working economy.
I'm going to pee.
Thank you.
Okay, so in my opinion, you have to do a little bit of both, because you want industry to be able to work, and I think the problem right now is outsourcing. Countries like China that are taking all the labor, and they're making sweatshops with low wages. I think they're more at fault for what's going on with the economy. I'm not saying the U.S. hasn't done stuff like that, but I think there should be a slight amount of regulation, like Hayden was saying. But I think there should be just enough room for companies to breathe, so that they are able to, produce the goods we buy, create a stable economy for the United States to protect people, all the people. Because if we don't have a stable economy, people at the low end of the class, the high end, the middle class will all fade away. So I think it's important for both to be protected.
Yeah, I'm pretty much around the same level.
I'm going to go with Hayden. I'm going to say strongly agree. Even though I'm deregulation on most things, I'm going to say the environment is pretty important, and we should push it to the max in terms of how we regulate what they do in making sure they don't have a harmful effect on the environment. I think if we, kind of go with the idea that, we need to protect the industry and the economy, it's just not going to be effective enough in saving the environment, because we do not have a lot of time.
Well, I would say that's not certainly the case, because climate predictions are notoriously bad. They have been. So it's hard to say things with certainty. And that's why I don't think you can just go all out with regulation to protect the environment. There should be conscious actions made, but I mean, American citizens value protecting the environment. and they have cause changes, American citizens value spending less money on gas, and that means cars become more efficient. So there's a lot of ways.
But then, Nico, the question there becomes: do you trust the human spirit to value the environment, something external versus something internal, that like the lowered cost of production that comes with free regulation?
I'm not saying free regulation. I'm saying there's just a limit to how much we need. And the question is, where do we find that? So that's why I don't say strongly agree, because I think there is some regulation needed, but I don't think it's very heavy regulation that's super controlling, because I think that will have more negative effects than good.
Okay.
It's just a matter of how urgent you think the issue is.
So I'll take the next one. From each according to his abilities to each according to his need is a fundamental good idea. So, in my opinion, for multiple reasons. It's not
Based.
because there's multiple reasons. The first one being I'm not a communist, and that literally comes from the Communist Manifesto and Karl Marx. So I'm just gonna have
Daddy
to say
Marx.
strongly disagree in that stance, just because
But Daddy
came from
Karl.
Karl Marx himself. And second of all,
I worship you, Daddy Carl.
The philosophy that he follows would destroy the economy, and I think by doing that, having everybody go to their ability is a fundamental bad idea, because it would completely destroy what we know as a good economy and what we know as people in labor. I think there should be stronger protections for people that are disabled, but I think it ends up getting expanded to the fact that it's not just their ability, it's what they want and not their entire ability. So I would say strongly disagree in that one.
I put disagree because I think ideally that's a good idea, but I don't think that works out to be the case. It hasn't really worked in history, and so it is a bit of a leap away from fundamentally is it a good idea, but it's kind of hard to make that decision knowing what we know and understanding the context.
I think climate change is
Yeah.
I think that climate change isn't something, though, that we've necessarily seen the effects of in a modern economy.
We're on the next question.
Based.
Okay. So the freer the market, the freer the people. Are we starting that one now?
Oh, do you guys want to talk on the last one?
Wait, you want to add something?
Oh, let me give me my. Okay. No, Ben, go ahead.
I'll be right. I gotta go real quick.
I already said something on that one.
Okay.
So.
All right, then I'll go strongly agree. This is the most base thing that's even come up on this entire
fundamentally
thing.
or pragmatically? It's a good idea.
Fundamentally. I think fundamentally, because I don't believe that the outcome of your life or what you should be aspiring to is money. I think it's what you do with that money. And therefore I believe that everyone should be given equal opportunity to the money that they possess in order to spend it.
But this is equal outcome, not equal opportunity, because this is saying everyone gets what they need.
Well, what they need does not mean what they want is the problem I have with that. What they need to survive, which obviously, I mean, what everyone would get in order to survive would be a lot more. Like,
Food,
for example,
shelter.
me, I don't think I would get it much because I think that I'm currently able to survive very well. But I think that people in areas that are incredibly disadvantaged would get a lot under this system of government or economy. So it's equal opportunity it shouldn't be equal opportunity to survive. It should be you get what you need to survive, and now you have the opportunity with the rest of your money that you have.
So are you trying to level the playing field for opportunity, or are you trying to level the outcome?
I think that leveling the outcome is one of the strangest rhetorical devices used by the right. I think it's leveling the outcome.
This question is giving everybody what they need, so that's leveling the outcome because everyone's meeting their threshold. Are you just trying to give everyone an equally fair shot? Like, I just don't fully understand.
Leveling the outcome is socialism.
Yeah.
It's full on marketing.
Well, yeah. I mean, the outcome of money, not the outcome of your life, which is very different things.
Well, obviously, I mean, you can. Well, it's not always money, but goods and necessary goods.
Yes. Okay. So I strongly agree.
Okay,
All right, let's move on.
Okay.
Ben, you want to take this one?
Sure. The freer the market, the freer the people. I'm going to say agree, not strongly agree. I think there are some necessary regulations that we need to make, but generally, yes, I don't think the government should play a large role in the economy or anything.
Yeah,
I would agree with Ben on that, but also because you have to take into account, like, I think you have to take into account the fact that there's a mix of both. Because if it's too free in a sense, you're just going to be oppressed by a different, elite class. Like whether it's corporations or the government, you're going to be oppressed. So you have to find a medium balance of which, the people are free because they're not slaves to corporations and they're not slaves to their own government. For example, if we're just going to have so much regulation on business, small businesses wouldn't be able to succeed, and the workers that work for corporations wouldn't be able to, make ends meet, and that would be a problem if the government went to regulate it too much. But if we go the exact opposite way, where the government's like, oh, do whatever you want economy, then the workers and people that are at the lower end of the class, in the middle class, are going to be on the short end of the stick. And it's just either way, you're going to have an elite class ruling everybody. And I think you have to find a medium balance between that.
Yeah, I think that's why I say agree. I think that a free market is generally the best basis, but there are certain regulations, Ben said, that are needed. So just saying, like, I don't think you can take the statement absolutely, because that I would say it's wrong. But on the whole, the freer the market, people will be freer until a certain level. But that's a very extreme end where you're talking full on free market, no regulation.
Okay, so I mean, it'll probably surprise you guys. I support a free market at the current stage we are in, but I don't support the free retention of the value in which you gain from that market. So I support the free exchange of goods. I don't support you retaining that value at the same rate. For example, I think that the rich should be able to participate in a free market and exchange goods, but I don't believe that they should be able to retain the same amount of value as I don't believe that in terms of a percentage, they should be retaining the same value, according to their wealth as poor people do. And then the freer the people is sort of a strange caveat to this one, which is why I'm going to say disagree. If it was just talking about, do you support free markets, I would probably say agree. With a, asterisk of with taxes after the fact of the free market purchase. But now that it's saying the freer the people, I'm going to have to go disagree, because I think free markets by themselves, without that caveat of taxing, will inevitably boil down to corporations oppressing people and looking for the cheapest possible way to gain, to produce their product. And so then it won't be free. So I'm going to go disagree on this one.
Okay. I think I'll do this next one. It's a sad reflection on our society that something as basic as drinking water is now a bottled, branded consumer product. I mean, I don't think it's really that sad. It's just people want better water. Like, most people have a tap water in their home. I mean, in our society, at least American society, to answer this question. So I would say strongly disagree, because it's just people want convenience. And people want something that they think tastes better, because everyone hates Dasani. Dasani sucks.
Dasani is bomb. Dasani is so good.
Okay, well,
Dasani
you're
is
wrong
elite.
there. Okay, anyhow. But that does show, like, people, I think more it's the value of the taste in the water and the convenience of not having to lug around a big metal bottle, or not having to remember to fill up a bottle every morning, rather than saying because it's not branding in water like there's tap water that's much cheaper. And, I just don't think I think it's sort of taking it too extreme.
I would just say a regular agree. I think it should, come out, especially you can't go back now, the fact that we have it. But you also have to take into account the environment that the corporations, create this bottled consumerism, mass consumerism based product. They take from the environment, and what they create also harms the environment. So you've got to have, stricter regulations. But in essence, it helps the people that are in the country. So I think what's best for the people is, what we should follow. And I think you should have a little bit of a mix. So I would just say a regular agree for me.
I'd say strongly disagree. I'll go with Nico. I think it's pretty ridiculous. I don't think.
I meant just a regular disagree. I didn't mean regular.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just read it wrong.
Yeah. I'm going to say strongly disagree. I mean, Nathan, you brought up a good point. There are some implications of water bottles specifically harming the environment, but in general, it's not a bad thing that a lot of things are privatized. I think that is generally a good thing. So
I think also the value
Mm.
is more in convenience and taste than it is just. It's not like, oh, I need water, I have to go buy a bottle of water. Like, no, there's hoses if you're like that desperate for water. There's a lot of other ways to get water.
But
So I think
which
this is
brings
kind
me
of-
to my point. Which brings me to the point where stable drinking water is only purchasable in a way that is reflection of our psyche mentally and psychologically in terms of
It's just a
having.
commodity. People value commodities. People value comfort, and I don't think that's necessarily.
But
a
I
bad
think
thing. Like, you'd rather eat better tasting food than worse tasting food. It's just, I mean, so you're gonna pay more, and you'd rather want to. You'd be more likely to go to a restaurant that's 15 minutes from your house than is 45 minutes from your house. And I think that's where the true value of a bottle of water is. It's not that I need water and I have to buy this bottle of water. And I think that's sort of what the question or the statement is in regards to this question.
I'm gonna go a light agree on this one still, because I don't have a problem with it being bottled. Like, that's fine. But the problem lies in branded consumer. The fact that water is not water. These water bottle companies are not inherently valuing bringing water to people for their ability to survive. They're inherently valuing selling water to people, which is, I think, a very distinct difference.
That's a sad thing. I'm just saying that.
I think it's like. Well, I think it's sad.
I think that's just innate
I'm
human
going to vote
nature
agree.
to want convenience and to want better taste. I don't think it's.
But I don't think consumer branded is necessarily tied to better taste. I don't think the privatization of water.
That's what they like.
But Hayden, what's the alternative? I don't understand what the problem is. I mean, yeah, of course corporations want money. They don't really care about people getting.
I don't have no. I'm not saying.
But
I'm
yeah,
not saying
that's
it's
what
an alternative.
Corporations do. I mean, that's how our society works. That's how society should work, and that's how it works in the developed world.
But I disagree that it's
I
how
don't necessarily know if
society
that's
should
how
our
work.
society that
to
things
work.
are privatized and corporations want to make money.
I don't think that. I think that is. I mean, obviously, with Marxist theory, capitalism is necessary in the sense that it needs to evolve. Based. Obviously, I believe that obviously, I believe that capitalism has to happen. Part of my theory. But I believe that we are in a stage currently in our society in which we need to start moving on from it and looking for an economy with less of a free market or less of a retention of wealth. And therefore, I'm going to go with I think it's sad that we have to intrinsically, when we think of Dasani water, we don't think of, oh, it's water and it's something essential to our survival. We think of it's a brand in which it has been developed using money and consumer goods in order to compete with other brands instead of just being a staple of water. And so it's still an agree for me.
Okay, land shouldn't be a commodity to be bought and sold. So, my opinion, land shouldn't be. I'm going to disagree. Or I'm going to be disagree or strongly disagree. It's a mix for me because it's like that's how Western civilization is set up already. It's if you want to change it, that's a different stance of morals and values. But what's the other alternative? The government owns it and everybody can go anywhere. I think that would just. I think, in my opinion, that could lead to more homelessness. That could lead to, it could lead to a degression from an advanced society that we would consider ourselves.
Yeah,
I think
I disagree. I can't think of an alternative to land being a commodity that can be bought.
Yeah.
So,
private property is essential to the system we live in, and so if you're saying it shouldn't be a commodity to be bought and sold, you're saying that our system is not the best one or the one that yields the best outcome. So I think the reason why it should be a commodity to be bought and sold is because it's necessary to the system we have, and which I would consider the best system. So that's why I would put strongly disagree.
I'm sort of hung up on this one. Land being a commodity is brought about a lot of different problems throughout history, but then the issue becomes, well, what's the alternative? And I don't think that society in its current state is ready for a land being a public thing, and but although I do believe that we should be making more public land areas, such as beaches, parks, stuff like that. But I'm not ready in our right. I'm not ready in our current state to say that land shouldn't be a commodity.
I think you're kind of agreeing. You're just like, you're hesitant to do so because you know what your end goal in mind is.
Right. So I agree in theory, but I don't agree in functionality. So I'm going to go agree, but it's sort of a light agree.
Ben, where'd you go?
Benjamin.
He's on mute. I think he's already spoke. I think we can move on to the next one. I don't think.
All right.
Okay. So
it is regrettable that many personal fortunes are made by people who simply manipulate money and contribute nothing to their society.
I think okay. I think this is just what political compass does to force people to go to the left, because it's such a worded.
Are you being indoctrinated to political compass, Nathan?
No, I'm just saying this is such a worded question that's purposely is trying to play on values and trying to make you sound like a really bad person for saying one way or another.
I think that's your conscience doing that. I think that's your conscience doing that.
In my opinion, I think people manipulating the economy for their benefit. Yeah, that's I think that's disgusting, and I think it's terrible for people to make money on at the expense of others going down. For example, stock market brokers. But I also don't think it should be like illegal in a sense, because it contributes something to the economy. I don't think it contributes to society. I think they're just as bad as people who don't do anything and don't work. They're just like people that sit on their couch and stay at home. They're people. What's the word? Degenerates. Basically, they're degenerates. Like
right.
Just like the people that don't. Just like the same as the way with the people that don't work. They contribute nothing to the advancedness of society. But compared to the people that sit at home in their basement, these people do contribute something to the economy in a sense that, I'm like, Ben was saying earlier, we're not experts in the economy, so I'm not exactly sure how, what the stock market plays on the overall expense of everybody else.
Speak on that.
But I think it's sometimes necessary. It's necessary to have people like this, but I don't think they contribute to society. That's why I think, in my opinion, yeah, these are bad people, but they do something to the economy that does have a role in society. So I would say,
but I disagree there. I disagree that it has a role, or at least a beneficial role in society, because then they're amassing a personal fortune by doing that, which could be redistributed throughout people who are actually performing that labor.
Large personal fortunes put their money to work in the economy, and when you buy and sell stocks, which is
exactly.
Really
so
saying, you are funding businesses. You are providing them the capital they need to grow. If you buy stocks when a company first releases them, they're getting more money that they need, and that's not simply manipulating money. I just think the question itself is wrong. So I
think that's what I was saying earlier, as Nico just said. It's a question that's trying to get you to go to one extreme. And like Nico was saying, they do purchase stuff, but not all these billionaires do. There's some of these billionaires that just keep it for the fact that they like their numbers to go up a little bit.
I don't think
they like the fact that they're number 2 on Forbes list. It's not,
I don't think most people hold
it's not
on
most.
to
I
cash.
think
most people don't sit on cash.
I would agree.
They sometimes sit on gold and stuff, but
I'm just saying, like millionaires, for example, yeah, they'll purchase houses and stuff like that, which contributes to the overall economy. They'll purchase stuff from grocery markets. They'll purchase stuff like iPhones, that contributes to other corporations. But in the sense that some of them do hoard their wealth, where it's just the fact that they like wealth. And people like Bill Gates donate. I don't personally agree with Bill Gates, but he does donate, so that does contribute to something to society. But like I was saying,
this isn't talking about super billionaires, right? This is just talking about people who make their money through investing and working in stocks and what have you.
That's exactly. Well, because it says manipulate, so it's trying, like you were said, it's people that play in stocks. But stock market people aren't necessarily the most moral people. These people, Jordan Belfort, like that guy was not a good person. Like he made money.
Complete scumbag.
But that's like how most of them are. Just they didn't get caught. Like that's just the difference. Is most of these guys are scumbags.
And here's my problem.
I'm not saying all of them are. Some of them are probably good people, but they make their money at the expense of others. Sometimes or
No,
most of the
it's
time.
not at the expense of others though. It's just they're profiting off of. I mean, some people do like
But Nico, consider this counterpoint. If you were to redistribute the personal fortunes which they're making by
I
moving
wouldn't say
around money,
I
Yeah.
wouldn't want redistribution though. Like that's
Well, let him-
but
let
I
him
do.
speak.
But
Let
I
him-
do.
Go
that's
on.
the
Speak, Hayden.
Oh, okay. So it is regrettable that many personal fortunes. I think it is regrettable because people who make money off of the movement of money,
But it's not.
but you're saying investment. I get what you're saying with investment, but the reality of corporate America right now is that it's corporate socialism, right? I mean,
This
I don't
isn't
think there's
corporate
anyone
America though. This is
argue.
people buying shares in companies.
But corporate America is run off of that.
But very
correct?
few people who manipulate money actually sit on a board that directly influences the company. When they buy
True.
and sell stocks, they do influence the company because if
True.
they sell off the company,
But what
you
I'm
need
saying
to
is
change.
it enables corporate America the money in which they run their company.
Yeah, but on the whole, like corporations aren't inherently bad. They tend to do bad things, but they do provide important stability. We look at what's happening right now. The restaurants that aren't going to go out of business in the food markets that aren't going to go out of business are the corporations because they have the size to take a blow to the economy. And that is very important. We need big things that are safe. You can talk all you want about how important small businesses are, and they are. I'm not disputing that. But corporations are important. I don't think many people recognize how necessary they are to the economy. They are a very big pillar of stability in this country.
And I would agree.
I would
that way.
Well, I would agree with you.
Well,
but you can't
has
if
to be
you
that way.
Yeah, you can't. The way you would want to change it would completely disrupt how we know the economy.
You can say it
ought
not to be that way,
Yeah.
but there's not an alternative. There's at least
that's
it hasn't ever been
that's
seen.
why I would agree
I think
with
you could.
Nico on
I
the,
think you
well,
could
on
ease
the,
yourself off to an alternative. I think you could make
on
an
the.
alternative.
But
Like,
I would
what
agree with Nico
though?
on the fact that corporations do provide something to society. But it's I'm pretty sure the statistic is like small businesses employ 78% of people. So small businesses do carry the back of employment.
But employment isn't.
It's not the only
everything,
thing.
right?
I know that's what I was getting to my point. Can you let me finish? Like you can. Come on, man. Come on. Be a respectful debater, man. You'd get points docked off on MUN, man. Come on. Like this is like 5 points gone. Like now you're not even on the top 5 list anymore. Okay.
Yeah, but nobody pays attention to diplomacy. They just dock points to make it fit the awards.
Okay. But in a moral society, you would be docked points. In a moral
Okay,
society.
continue, please.
Yeah, I think we should move on to the next one. I mean, I think we're sort of off track.
All right, so
Can I
I'm
make an
on
statement on
strong
this one? I haven't.
Yeah, Ben
I
hasn't talked.
I'll make it quick. But yeah, I just think the question is worded really weird. Like, I don't think it's that simple of like people just sit there and manipulate money and do nothing. I think they actually have a job and they're doing something. And Hayden, you were saying, well, yeah, they don't really contribute anything to society, so we should redistribute that wealth. Then the problem with that is then you're also giving money to people that don't contribute to their society, even though they can when they're out of work or they have a job that is as useless as this job. So I think citing
but the fact that there are people
ideals, I'm going to say no, it's not regrettable.
I would,
No.
for my opinion,
But
I would just say regular disagree.
Yeah.
People who sit at home because they're unemployed are very different from people who sit at home and contribute nothing to society, are very different from people who sit at home and contribute nothing and amass a personal fortune.
But people who
Because
manipulate money carry risk.
Yeah. So
Carry what?
let's move on to the next question because
when
I
you buy
agree.
a stock, that's helping provide capital to a company, but you're carrying risk. You're saying,
Which is why I think it should be redistributed.
Okay, but that's
I mean,
a
you
different.
can argue
but
the
that's,
merits of redistribution, but that's getting away
Okay,
from the
but
question.
that
okay,
comes
let's
down to
next
our
question.
I think
fundamental disagreement.
redistribution is a different debate. So let's
Yeah.
just move on. I think we've just
Okay, so the next one, I got this one. Protectionism is sometimes necessary entry. I would say strongly agree for the fact that our nation's interest should be the primary one. Our, like, earlier we were saying, talking about AI, and that's a problem for the future. But, for the past 20 or 30 years, we've been, selling our workers out to China for, corporations' profits. You got to look at it both ways, where it's like these people are losing their jobs because corporations want to make more money so they can work in sweatshops and have people paid like $1 a day because they want, bigger profit. And that's a problem for our workers. There could be a debate whether or not that's a problem anymore due to the globalization that's already happened. Now it's maybe a little too late for that because our politicians could care less about us, and they make their money based off corporations giving them money to support whatever they want. So my opinion is that we should. It's still something important to this day. We're still getting outsourcing labor to China and other countries like that. And if you're if you're going to take a moral standpoint, you got to also acknowledge the fact that that's almost basically slavery in China. It's not just wage slavery, as a communist would like to say, or a socialist. And, where libertarians like Nico would disagree with that, which I would agree with Nico on that point. It's not necessarily wage slavery in this country. But in places like China, where it's $1 a day, 25 cents a day, are you going to take a moral standpoint against that? As people in America, people are upset about us killing.
But on the whole, I mean, you can't just get rid of sweatshops. They do. I mean, like, if you try and force the sweatshops to pay more, they're going to hire less people if they want to maintain their profit margin.
But what I'm saying is I don't care, because sweatshops don't really happen in this country as much as they do in China. No. This is my point, is which I don't care what China does with their companies. My point is our company should be manufacturing in the United States of America to help the people that actually buy their product, because our people are more important than that of people from China. I'm sorry, but if you want to talk about the value of human life, the value of human life is the same, but our government should be focusing more on our citizens and not citizens of a foreign country.
I think protectionism is necessary when you're trying to develop a domestic economy and build it. But once you have established that economy, I don't think it's necessary anymore. It's more so in the early years when you need to protect your domestic companies, your domestic industry.
But that's coming from a standpoint. That's coming from a standpoint of someone that's well off, where their dad. People don't understand that people on the lower end who actually work in these companies and don't own them are losing their jobs. And by that point, a lot of people talk about, we need to educate them in new resources or new fields. At some point, it's too late for some of these people. They're out of school. They've been out of school for 10, 20 years now, and you took away their jobs by shilling out to corporations. I don't think it's cool to shill for big corporations. I'm sorry.
So let me give context.
I don't think you're entirely wrong there.
So Nico, you said that you think once the economy is developed, you essentially don't need protectionism, right?
It's not as important. It's more important for other nations that are developing their economies. And
so
I suppose that's more globalist than it is nationalist. It's just a matter of how much do you value the absolute success of your people over.
So here's my argument against that in terms of the wording of it is sometimes necessary. And obviously this goes sort of against what Nathan was saying, how the political compass quiz is indoctrinating us. Well, this is indoctrination.
I wasn't saying indoctrination. I was saying like.
But anyway, what I'm trying to say here is that I think that the economy is rapidly changing as it is currently. And I think the industries are going to emerge that never existed before.
Certainly.
Very, very soon. And so therefore, I'm going to give a light agree and say it is sometimes necessary in trade as these new industries are being developed within America.
I can get behind that.
And so I agree with you in the theory of what you're saying. I just disagree functionally as our economy evolves from late stage capitalism to a globalized socialist.
I was just using that as the main example. I'm not saying it's the only example.
All right. We agree.
Ben, what would?
Yeah, I'm gonna go moderately agree. I think we should definitely protect national industry, but
not based
at all.
Ben.
Protectionism and too high tariffs would just disrupt a free market. So.
But the free market isn't the only important thing in our society. I think our people are more important than the free market.
But the free market is what, in my opinion, yields the best outcome for our people.
Right.
That's not
Not
necessarily
necessarily
true.
what ought to be, but it is what is.
Well, I think your
Okay.
difference of I think the word you're trying to use is corporations. What benefits the best is what benefits the best for people is different than what benefits for corporations. Corporations benefit from globalism. Corporations benefit from outsourcing their labor. The people
No,
here
no,
do not.
corporations benefit from lack of regulations, and they go where they can to find those lack of regulations.
But
They
that's
would
not
be
the
happy
only.
to sit in America with sweatshops if they could. It would be better for them. It keeps them closer to the domestic market that they're
that's-
selling to.
But
It would
that's not
actually
the
make
only.
them more money if they're sweatshops in America.
Because yeah, I know they don't have to import their labor. I understand, but it's not just regulation. It is regulations, but that's why we should have protectionism is to protect the people in this country. Because
There is a certain level.
we want to. We
All
want
right,
to. Prevent,
let's hold on. Move on.
well,
move
that's
on,
also
let's move on.
that's also come with Donald Trump, not necessarily our.
I just
entire
disagree
country's
on
history.
how important you think it is.
All
I
right,
think it's more
let's
important.
and
than
that's a value thing, and then that leads to our different answers. Okay, next one.